China just had the meeting for their 15th five-year plan organization. And this is a really important topic, especially because of the way that geopolitics is playing out right now. And normally, while we ignore it, today, we're going to talk about it.
So China's leadership met this week to chart a policy course for the 15th five-year plan, China's development blueprint, if you will, for the rest of the decade. This was the fourth plenary session of the 20th Central Committee. A lot of numbers, I know, but why is it relevant? The fourth plenum is usually focused on party building. So it's meant for government officials to come together to refine how the Communist Party governs, enforce discipline, maintain ideological unity. And what was interesting about this one, at least from the details we know, the actual report won't be released until March. But from what we've seen so far, this included tightening control over key institutions, ensuring loyalty to Xi Jinping's leadership, and aligning provincial, military, and economic leaders ahead of the 2026 five-year plan rollout. So what do we know so far? We know that surprisingly, the external challenges of today have similarities and draw parallels to those that the country faced in the 1950s. Export controls, restricted access to technology, and a complicated security environment, to put it lightly. However, now the focus is very much on speeding up self-reliance and technology in the form of technology, which is a long-running push that I think is only going to be furthered over the next 5 years, especially given the sanctions that the U.S. has imposed. I cannot imagine China backing away from becoming even more self-reliant and focusing on its own internal economy, from things like semiconductors to other high-tech items. China wants to be self-sufficient. And this full plan, like I said, won't be known until March. But my thoughts are that this is actually just going to make negotiations between the U.S. and China more difficult in the future, because now China is going to have less of a reason to give way to any demands. And not just with the U.S. I think any external government, external party, China has more to offer and is bringing more to the table.
I think that's exactly the moment that we are in. As a player, as a geopolitical player, as a tech player, they are coming out in front in so many ways. And one of the things that we keep talking about on our podcast is their position with critical minerals. And the fact that they have this almost monopoly position allows them to pull some levers that typically most other countries don't have. And the other piece is also the fact that in their agenda, they are really doubling down on the things that they're winning on. And tech, they're actually winning. I'm not saying that the US is not ahead in certain areas and whatnot, but one of the things about power is that it's not about who ranks first in terms of revenue. It's about who is it that can pull the plug the fastest.
And when they pull the plug, who are they impacting? You can say you're number one, but if your entire product and service is built upon the backs of parties that you can't rely upon, that you can't control, then guess what? You're not number one. The people, the companies, the countries that have your backing, they're actually number one.
One of the things that I keep thinking about is this discussion about an Xperia that was happening in the Netherlands, where the Netherlands has gone and basically nationalized the company, and it's a Chinese chip manufacturer. The reason that I'm baffled is the fact that I just don't know how the Netherlands thought that the story would end there. And in fact, it didn't. Right away, China went and sanctioned their own Chinese company to make sure that they would not have access to critical minerals. And then on top of that, now the entire automotive industry in Europe is being essentially sanctioned from having access to these rare earth minerals. And so I find I'm not sure what was the strategic play, even if they had the backing of the United States or the rest of the EU, even the UK or any other players. I'm just not sure how they expected this to play out, as though that was going to be the end of the story.
I think they thought about it beyond that. They probably just did it to appease the U.S. You and I have previously used the analogy of picking a basketball team, right? Like you're either team A or team B. They are very much team USA. So they're probably like, you know what? We'll lead this play on the court. But who's actually calling the shots? Who's actually captain of the team? Team USA. They're going to tell us which play to run next, and we'll just rely on them to tell us how to do the next layup. But this is all very much playing into Xi Jinping's vision for China's future. I mean, I think this is exactly what he wants in terms of demonstrating China as a tech leader and a global power, not one that you can just mess around with and expect no repercussions from. And coming out of this meeting, we also see them doubling down on having a robust military. This is not only to command respect across the tech world, but also to command respect and exert that international influence that we know has always been really important to China.
One of the things that I find really interesting, especially from the comments that we were getting on our YouTube videos when we talk about the US versus China dynamic, is the fact that there's a lot of people in the United States that are pro-China now. And I'm willing to gamble that this has been a change of tides over the course of the last 9 months. And the reason I say this is the way that China has been playing the game is categorically the opposite of not just the United States, but the UK, the EU, the Middle East even, where they've essentially stayed even-keeled, very calm through the negotiations, and they have not been sort of riled up from anything from tariffs to criticism and anything in those lines. And as a result, one of the things that the West has been left to figure out is what is China's official position? How far are they willing to go? Because they're not making too many public statements, this is one of the areas that is making a lot of the Western powers struggle. Now, there's another thing that we also started learning from a number of different comments that people were making, in which when the Chinese parties speak publicly, they are relatively honest and clear about their intentions. And you just have to learn to read between the lines and understand what their message is. But nonetheless, they have been very uniform. It's not just Xi Jinping who's making public statements. It's across the party that we've been hearing really, really uniform statements relating to how this is your version of competition, and we have been playing by your rules. And now you are willing to sanction us, tariff us, and go through all of these other actions. And as a result, we are paying the price. But we are not going to retaliate in the way you would want us to, but we're also not going to back down. And so we're seeing many of these actions play out in that light. And we're starting to see Americans and people in the United States, and maybe even the entire Western world, starting to change tunes against this anti-China rhetoric and start to become pro-China.
Let's see how well this 5-year plan does. I mean, I would be shocked if things don't change because the world is changing daily, and what made sense yesterday doesn't make much sense today.